pulling up the dock. Oh, no. I didn't think of a motivational message. I'll draw a card.
That's cheating.
No, that's the universe telling me what the people need to hear.
Whatever, man.
Okay.
The maple bacon beef jerky says.
Oh, wait a second.
You want some?
Bring some over here. Put that meat in my mouth. You know what?
Shout out to 7-Eleven.
I'm not mad at the 7-Eleven Select brand.
It's up there. It's not QT.
It's not QT. It's not, Mi Tienda or even Hill Country Fare.
Do you like it more than CVS brand?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. That's not bad. That's pretty good.
No, pretty as far as snacks go.
You hear that, listeners? 7-Eleven Select.
I needed a snack that I could chew that wouldn't crunch during podcasting.
That's right. But even if it did crunch, a little ASMR, realness, not bad. They're not a sponsor, but they can be.
Mm-hmm. Good afternoon, 7-Eleven.
What up, sluts? Welcome to the Puro Pinche podcast, a pop culture poetry podcast with a Puro South Texas twist. My name is Chibbi.
My name is Rooster.
And we are Puro snacking.
Puro free?
Puro snacks.
Puro, we are snacks.
That's
we are
right.
snacks, but always distilled.
Let's go, people.
So it's the 4th of July, and we are recording this podcast for y'all's entertainment.
That's
How's your
right.
Holiday going? How you celebrating?
By not. It's one of those things. I don't know if I can celebrate this country today.
Sure.
Or ever. This year. Let's just say
Definitely,
this year.
yeah.
So, not a whole lot of patriotism. It feels like freedom is slowly being eroded, But I do have the freedom to do nothing, which is how I am celebrating this holiday. Is we're going to record
3-day weekend, hit the air horn.
That's right. And actually, I just got word earlier this week that my job is just moving to a 3-day weekend year round.
Hey,
we already have like a flexible schedule, like work your own hours sort of deal. But
closer to like a 4-day work week.
Yeah, we are now officially a 4-day work week.
Hell yeah.
So you're only really, and we're saying Fridays off, or they're saying Fridays off, but because it's flexible, right? Like if you want to work Monday, Tuesday, take Wednesday off, and then work Thursday, Friday, totally fine.
I actually think the Saturday, Sunday, Monday off is underrated.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I most people at my job were like a no meeting Fridays kind of deal. I was a no meeting Mondays kind of deal. And where it's like, let me start my week off, chill, figure it out. I get some stuff done. I don't get a lot of stuff done, but I'm going to,
figure out who's still here.
Yeah. Figure out what's happening, what I need to do for the week in a chill way. And then Tuesdays, from 9 a.m. to about 2 p.m. back-to-back meetings.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So freedom to do nothing. Yay. What about you, friend?
Freedom to do nothing.
Yeah.
It's kind of the plan. Watch movies. What else am I doing?
Are we going to do the Jurassic Park binge?
I think so.
Okay. Tomorrow? Today? Yesterday?
Today. Yeah.
We started last night. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
We'll talk about it later when we talk about movies. The homies, the homie JR, who's been on here, and his wife Pinto went and saw a $5 movie at a Regal. They wouldn't tell you what movie it is. The mystery movie deal. Yeah. So when they sent that text and the gifts, I thought that they got to see the original Jurassic Park. No, it was the new one.
Oh, it was the new one.
They got to see it like a week early or something like that. And they said it was as good, if not better, than the original. So
all right. I'll take their word for it because a lot of critics are saying different.
Wow.
What do I know?
I know. What do critics know, actually?
What does anyone know?
That's the real thing. All right. We got a lot to talk about. So
let's hop in and kick some thoughts around for our wonderful listeners. Listeners, thank you all so much for rocking with us today.
Thank you for being here.
We like to start with something that we call
Nope. You're wrong.
Where we toss ideas around and Maybe we hate what the other person's saying because they're clearly wrong. Maybe we're on board with the idea.
Maybe we're not sure where we stand on the idea and we need to debate it a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those.
Well, this first one is already wrong. So go ahead.
No, it is not wrong.
Get your shit off.
We were not able to circle back to this a few weeks ago. A number of episodes ago, listeners, you may remember that there was some Lady Gaga bashing happening
hilarious.
On this pod.
Bashing is doing so much work in that
was
sentence.
a bashing, a blaspheming, a smothering of the good mother's name. And I did not get to retort later because we were off for a number of weeks.
Something like that.
But she did that concert in Rio. Did you hear about that concert?
So not in the U.S.?
Worldwide. This is a legend.
Gotcha.
This is a worldwide legend.
Gotcha.
2.5 million people. And not because she was performing at the Olympics or the World Cup or some other event that was the main attraction. No.
How much were tickets?
Just her. They were free.
Okay.
For Rio. 2.5 million people decided to come out. Not only that, her seventh number one. I went and did some research, okay? Because I was like, no, the numbers speak for themselves. Seventh number one album.
Okay, you cook.
Seventh number one album. Currently has 100 to 105 million monthly listeners on Spotify alone, which ranked her as the number 2 artist earlier this year. She is one award away from having an EGOT. Taylor Swift ain't even close to getting an EGOT. Okay? She's got an Emmy. She's got a Grammy. She's got an Oscar. All she needs to do is go do theater and she'll get that. Not only that, but she is a multi-franchisal success with House Labs being among the top 10 makeup brands in Sephora. The Born This Way Foundation being this huge mental health nonprofit that I forgot the milestone. They just passed a giant milestone of what have you. And to argue Paul's point earlier of like, well, you know, people in my circle don't know it's not being played on the radio, yada, yada, yada. We're in a brand new world, okay? 2007 is not 2025.
Okay.
Now it's all about streams, right? Nobody listens to the radio anymore. Okay. We've talked about that. And she is surpassing streaming records. Her album, when it launched earlier this year, was the largest, if we're talking about sales, the biggest selling album of any female artist this year.
Okay.
So
in basketball.
No, you're wrong.
Something that happens a lot is what they call LeBron James juice stats. All right. Now, LeBron James juice stat is when you're watching a game and in the middle of it, LeBron James hits a 3-pointer, he hits a slam dunk, or he gets an assist, he passes the ball to someone else who hits it right. And then this statistic will pop up that says, this is the first and only time in NBA history that someone has sent a pass to that corner to hit 23 points on the fourth quarter on a Wednesday. That's never happened.
But these are not that.
That's what, no, it is.
No, these are not that.
You can't trust the streaming numbers ever. I'm talking cultural impact.
Cultural
she's not
impact.
out here, bro.
She is
she's
out
not,
here.
No, she is out
here. Worldwide.
This is like when I was a kid and my mom was still like holding hope for Barbara Streisand. I'm telling you, the streets ain't feeling her.
The streets are feeling her. Not
she
yours.
is, I will say she's global. No, like I'll give you the globalness.
And again, with the sales of the album, you don't want to talk streaming. We can talk about sales.
I'm saying
largest sales
is
in the
on
first
her
year.
corner and has yet to be shook off.
I think Shackle.
I don't even like Chaperone, but I'm just saying.
Chaperone has enough problems. Let's not try and compare her to Lady Gaga.
We'll see, and that's funny because that actually goes to something else that I was going to bring up later in this Nope, You're Wrong, which we could just maybe go to next.
Because we all know you're wrong.
No, I listen. One, you were wrong when you were calling it the blaspheming and the breakdown. Like,
so evil.
We
all
respect her.
Evil.
We love her. I love Lady Gaga.
The comments on our podcast said otherwise.
Because you know why you can't trust those? Because they're bots.
Wow.
And that's what I'm telling you. That's why you can't trust.
Rooster just called you bots.
I did.
Rooster just called you bots.
If you were on that last comment, hop on this comment and let's see if you're a real person. Because I think you're a fucking bot.
Well, Chris, the homie Chris is not that Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, wrestling Chris, poetry Chris.
Right.
That Chris, not a bot.
Oh, Diaz?
No.
Who are you talking about?
The one that won I don't want to use her last name, like just, I don't know, because she doesn't want to be called out like that.
Oh, okay. But, I mean, again, like, I'm not saying that there's not. I think Gaga fans are avid and they are intense, and as they should, because she is iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I think she is one of the few acts post in the new millennium. When you're talking about big banger headliners, right? I think she is the icon of the new millennium. I'm saying these things.
Okay.
The juice is gone now.
It ain't gone.
It's not gone for you.
It ain't gone, period.
All right, man.
She just did a Star is Born a couple years ago.
Concert.
She did.
A free concert.
And the not free concert.
I think if Metallica does a free concert in Rio, they're getting 8 million. But does that mean that like Gaga is like
still have juice?
I'm just saying.
And the not free concert in Barcelona of like 60,000 people sold out in 4 hours.
I'm not saying internationally they are still tapped in a way that Americans aren't. I will agree to that point. But also I think, I don't see her like they'll do that for here's another good example. So someone like Diplo, the EDM artist.
Sure.
Yeah. See.
Sure.
Yeah. But that's my point is like if I could like Diplo could sell out internationally on a major level and locally. And like just like you're saying, you're like, yeah, but who's that hoe?
And win an Oscar-winning song.
Yes.
And win Emmys.
Yeah, as a musician. I mean, Diplo doesn't act, but
this is what I'm saying.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why it's a LeBron James stat.
No, because she is across various medias.
I disagree.
Various mediums.
But that doesn't mean that she's great at all of them.
She's pretty darn good at most of them.
Nah, I don't.
She's
like
won
her
Grammys in pop, in jazz, and in
why you think
soundtrack.
she won a Grammy in jazz, Chibby?
Because she went and did a jazz album.
No, because no one cared about who won a Grammy in jazz in 80 years. Okay, since Miles Davis passed away, ain't no one give a shit.
Wow. First you came for our listeners, now you're coming for jazz.
I'm saying like these are juiced up stats, and it's not to say that they're wrong. It's to say that
you're wrong.
She's not on the pulse as hard, like to the fresh ears listeners, they're not running to her. Another good example, the Clips just came out with some new stuff and it's tearing things up on the internet.
I don't know who the Clips are.
Exactly. I'm just saying, like Kendrick Lamar could drop something tomorrow. SZA.
He absolutely could.
They're of the moment. She's not. What she is doing is she's tapping back into her old sound, which I'm a fan of. But she's not it. She's not of right now. She's not the moment. She's not the moment.
That's your opinion.
Oh, well.
Moving on. What were you going to bring up next?
Celebrity bashing.
What you just partook in.
No, see, this is where I think you're unfair. Because this is exactly what I'm talking about. Is, you know who I think is getting bashed unfairly? Katy Perry.
Wow. But she is having a really rough year.
She's having a horrible year.
She is. Her in Orlando.
It's this whole wild downturn. She went to outer space. She was really happy about that. Felt great.
I mean, good for her.
New album, tour, all of it, bombing. Critics ain't here for her. And I guess this is what I'm trying to say.
Speaking of someone who hasn't been of the moment for a while, it's Katy Perry.
For sure. Well, but I think that's the interesting thing is even this of the moment conversation. And I think sometimes what my note you're wrong is specifically Katy Perry, but in general, we need to recheck celebrity bashing because as we'll talk about later, you do have celebrities who deserve to be bashed, like your Drakes and Diddy's and others horrible people. Mm-hmm. Where do you stand on the Amber Heard?
Amber Heard was Johnny Depp's. I don't know if
or the Blake Lively or like there's some. I think there's some celebrities who Brett Favre is another one like that. Fuck that guy. Like these celebrities who fall from grace because they have actually done things
atrocious things,
right?
Versus Just
Katy Perry's just a fucking. Of course, sent Katy Perry to space. They couldn't get the Island Boys. They could. They're just, it's like the point is so that Bezos can flex.
I think that's the problem with Katy Perry. She's always been like someone's backup to their backup choice.
Ooh, but see now, okay, I'll say this. I think that's a fair criticism, but I feel like she's been getting dogpiled on. And this chick, and you know why it pisses me off? Because she wrote she sung Fireworks.
That's the only one.
But you know why? It's because all these nerds who are now in their early 30s and are shitting on Katy Perry when y'all were fucking teens and you were feeling like a floating bag, and I was looking at y'all nerds like y'all suck. She uplifted y'all. Yeah. She lifted your spirits and you exploded like a firework, and now y'all are adults and y'all are petty and I see through you and you suck.
What was your fireworks?
My personal fireworks?
Yes.
What was the song that got me like that? Just,
or of your generation or your year of maybe not you personally, but what was the song of your peoples?
Of my age? That's a good question. I have to think about that.
Because I know mine.
Well, give me yours.
Oh, it was Beautiful by Christina Aguilera.
I think, that one was a banger.
Yes.
That was out there.
Yes.
Unpretty by TLC.
And everyone was like, I am beautiful.
Yeah.
That was,
yeah. No, Beautiful was a monster. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't say. It might be My Heart Will Go On, but that was also with the movie.
I don't know if that's I don't know if that's the vibe.
Yeah, I'd have to
maybe Unbreak My Heart.
Unbreak My Heart might be
it might be up there.
But there wasn't a lot of self-help songs when I was a kid.
It was just Life Sucks.
I was like, Life Sucks, or there's love songs, or it's Mariah Carey and talking about honey.
Oh no!
And so I would actually say Beautiful is a good. Okay. I think Christina Aguilera kind of kicked that off a little bit around the same time that TLC did Unpretty. You remember Unpretty?
I do not.
It was like, you don't have to wear makeup if you don't want to.
I do not. That was not my jam.
So unpretty.
Okay.
Yeah. And they kind of called out Mac in that song, which is
sure. I mean, Mac's been catching strays for years.
Yeah.
But to the Katy Perry of it all, I mean, yeah, people are just overly harsh. I think it's because I want to say it's because it's so easy to dog on her. There's so many things to dog her for. Does she deserve it? Probably not. Should we care? Absolutely not. Like if her and Orlando Bloom are splitting up, then that's their business. Like, way to let that one slip through your fingers, Katy Perry. But whatever, we don't know the specifics, and we don't need to know the specifics of it all because it's not our business. And I think that I've always kind of stood by that where
it's funny because we also romanticize others like Stevie Nicks and her horrible 70s and 80s affairs with in Fleetwood Mac and cocaine abuse, and I'm not saying these to say that to shit on her. I'm saying these are just facts. She was drunk on stage and blah 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 blah.
Maybe it's because people are so dissatisfied with their lives that they try to live vicariously through celebrities, and when those celebrity romances die, a la Bennifer. Or who's Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston?
Aniston.
Is that what it was? It hurts them on a deep level because they're like, but you were my hope for love. And now it's I have no hope for love.
You're kind of saying it's almost like fans of bands when the band breaks up.
Maybe.
But they're not into music like that heavy.
Maybe. I don't know. It's a nice sociology experiment.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try it. But you're saying less celebrity bashing.
I'm saying let Katy breathe, and I'm saying we can be critical without having to quote, like Lady Gaga. I'm just being critical of Lady Gaga. I think she's tremendous and iconic, and I can heap tons of praise on her. But but that's the other side of the backlash conversation. Is I feel sometimes even when you speak negatively of someone, or critically of someone, it's like, oh my god, you are just
such
a
hater,
you sicko. And I'm like.
Listeners, I hope you all know I was being facetious and hyperbolic.
Yeah.
Well, to quote one of the most quotable memes of the year 2000s, leave Britney alone.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's the one.
Leave Katy alone.
Leave Katy alone. All right, moving on. Payphones are having a comeback.
That's what you say. I don't see it. But
okay,
go
so
ahead.
here's the deal. Payphones are starting to pop up places again. These payphones, I don't want to get into the tech of it all, but essentially these payphones have Wi-Fi built into them, and they're being put in places that have free Wi-Fi, and people can use these payphones to make calls via Wi-Fi for free.
So then it's literally not a pay.
It's not a payphone.
It's a phone.
The fun part is that the person that has kind of like started to build this out literally started by taking a payphone, opening it up, and just changing the insides of how it works so that it's still your old school payphones, but now it's through...
It's a free phone.
It's a free phone.
I'm going to just say, nope, you're wrong, just because it's a free phone and not a pay phone, just by definition.
But do the idea of public use phones, I think that's what I'm getting at. And I think that's a fantastic idea.
I think it's a great idea in certain communities.
You know, and not just certain communities, but like if we want to tackle, which we might get into later during the Mind of My Big News, but the idea of like kids with smartphones, right? And it's like, well, how am I going to reach my parents? Well, what if every public school had these phones?
Every public school literally has phones. That's
but they're your teachers' phones, right? They're the administrators' phones.
But like,
you know, it's not just like the way payphones.
Old schools used to have payphones.
They used to, exactly. But like if they had these phones now, well, yeah, you could just call your mom on one of these phones, right? Places like public libraries, you know.
I still think that's
places
for
like
communities without.
I think. And I think communities without could do with.
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think that's what it's for. But that's why I'm saying, nope, you're wrong. I don't see it coming in vogue.
And it's for the random drug dealer in Times Square that doesn't want his call traced.
See, I feel like it'd be ultra traced now. I don't trust it. So I'm going to say, nope, you're wrong on the scope of it. Like, I don't think...
It's just starting off.
Sure. But I also feel like one of the things that happened during our generation that isn't happening so much is... we had sort of a greater, like, you remember when the Volkswagen Beetle came back in the 2000s?
In the new redesign?
Yeah. And that was kind of everywhere.
The Beetle was launched as a replacement for the Bug, yes.
Yes. And then you had even things like the PT Cruiser was kind of like a retro-y deco style.
A retro futurism.
Yes.
This, actually, retro futurism.
Well, that's what I was going to say, but I don't think younger generations care about it. Because, see, I think that was the thing about our generation was I feel like we're so... being 41, I feel like I'm feeling it more now than ever. Like, because I hang out with, like, the homie Mandy Lynn's kid sometime who's 16. And, like, I'm just like, yeah, I can't... Like, if I tell her about the 90s, it's like I'm talking about the moon.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
yeah. Can't relate. Don't understand.
At all. But when we were growing up, older generations and parents of us or uncles and aunts, like, they could tell us about the 70s and disco. And there was this almost like appeal of like, ooh, like, you could see yourself in that because it's not that far removed from what your lifestyle's like. Mm-hmm. And now it's just not that way
at all.
And so I don't see, I guess that's going to the nope, you're wrong of it all. I don't see young people flocking to free payphones. But I mean, we'll see.
That might be right. But I do say that we should bring them, disseminate them in the masses, in the public places, right? People that could use it.
I'm not against lack of communication.
More communication.
Yeah.
All right. What you got next?
Nope, you're wrong. Time and place. So
they don't exist
anymore. They are gone. And I'm realizing that more now than ever in the internet podcast world space. So there was this the comedian Andrew Schultz. Are you familiar with him?
I don't think so.
Okay, well,
maybe if I saw a face.
If you clip this up and put it on, we're gonna get a whole bunch of trolls under our shit. So fair warning. But he's a comedian and he's kind of problematic. But the reason why he's like gathered a lot of fame has nothing really to do with it, like the quality of his comedy. Like, I don't really think he's that funny. Okay, just on a general level. But he is the bridge, I would say, between
over troubled waters,
yeah, which we'll talk about later. Exactly, about for specifically men, young men, dude bro behavior type dudes. Between like he's the bridge between like Jon Stewart and Andrew Tate.
Okay.
So it's like in some ways, it's like he engages with politics and stuff. And one of the big things about him was he was who Trump came and talked to on his podcast. He's had since then, like Pete Buttigieg had like a great time on his podcast, like was informing a lot of people, Bernie and others, right? And one of the big comments during Kamala Harris's run was she needs to be on podcasts like with him specific, Andrew Schultz. Okay. So he had a recent podcast interview with the New York Times that was really interesting, and to the point where the media is now like disseminating it and dissecting it in this really fascinating way, because the conversation has to do with what even is media in 2025. And his argument is whereas I felt like the New York Times might have been trying to do this whole like, who are you? Why do you have the ear of people? And can be so influential in the political sphere as a comedian, and yet you're this sort of flippant, I don't give a fuck boy, comedy boy, whatever. And he threw it back on them like, but I'm asking questions people actually care about.
Sure.
Like, what are you doing? You're a sort of member of an apparatus to a greater thing. And if you can't get the follows, my guy, like that's basically what it boils down to. Is like, if you can't get the follows and I can, then I matter. And I guess you kind of don't.
Yeah.
And so here's where I think we need a czar, or we need a position. Maybe not now, because we do live in sort of authoritarian times. And
yeah,
if
the
you
word
call
czar
anyone,
is a bit triggering.
Yeah, it's very triggering. So I think I don't think Andrew Schultz is incorrect in that, because it's very similar to Jon Stewart. And Jon Stewart used to say those things like, I'm not a politician. I'm not here to be a political influencer. I'm here to be a comedian and make fun of politics.
Yeah.
However, I feel like there is this, the internet has fucked us up as people to where now we don't understand there's things you can say and things you shouldn't say, or conversations to be had, actual meetings for change and advocacy in specific times and places. It just happens 24/7, 365. It happens online. And that's why, like, I feel like even sometimes when activists like feel jilted from a movement, they just go run to their followers. And they're like, can you believe this, guys? They want to do this. And then it turns into like, well, fuck the Democrats. And we lose, you know, because it's like, hey, well, there's time and place for things to happen. Now, I do understand that there's this like conceptual pushback against time and place, because it's like, if you're advocating for time and place, you're also advocating for a type of order that can then exclude people or exclude perspectives from conversations and so on and so forth. I don't think that's bad. Like, because again, if we don't have dialogue happening in a manner that makes sense, like forum, decorum, all types of things that just are gone now, we are fucked. And that's what we're seeing.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's making me think of you're familiar with Buddy Wakefield's poem, The Gift of My Hate, where it starts off talking about Richard Gere at Madison Square Garden.
Got booed.
Right after 9/11, it was this big fundraising concert thingamabob, and he said that what we need right now is compassion, and he got booed. And that was, according to the crowd, the wrong time and place for that conversation of compassion.
Right.
And what you're saying is we need people to regulate the time and place of certain conversations. In this Nope, You're Wrong funny bit, yes. Okay.
Like we need time and place police.
We need time and place police.
But more in
a broader concept.
In a broader concept, I'm saying that we've lost so many minds and people of my generation to the angel-haired hipsters of the internet. You know, like there's so many people, like school is devolving as a site for education. I think that, and even though I'm not religious or necessarily care about the church, I think this is why things like Christian nationalism have risen to such prominence, because church is losing its grasp. And you know, I do think family is important. I don't necessarily stress just heterosexual, you know, nuclear family as like the end all be all, but it is in this sort of struggling time, because again, people don't respect time and place anymore.
Yeah.
We're just all firing off takes about everything all the time. And settling into anything is seemed as like transgressive now. Like there was this it's like like now you have the online eco activists who are just like, you know, turn it all off and get back into the real world. It's like, that's fine, but billions and billions of people are online.
Yeah.
And so you can't just ignore that too. So I think we just got to be better about how we exist in this space. And this kind of also segues into the big, beautiful bill a little bit with how there were certain states who were pissed off about like AI regulation. Like now you could be potentially arguing with people who don't exist with AI bots. Like,
well, that got taken out.
No, it did. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But I'm saying like it's still happening.
Yeah.
This
no, it
moment.
Absolutely is still happening. The idea of AI slop.
Yep, AI slop is huge right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll dive deeper into all of this.
And I guess that's a great thing too. AI slop, like, because I'm assuming you saw the John Oliver.
I did.
That was a good one.
Yes.
But like that's what I mean is like, while yes, it's interesting to see what a killer whale and a giraffe put together would be. Yeah, I think it's cool.
It is.
Or Batman and.
It's what the kids these days would call brain rot.
Yeah.
But it's also the reason that your abuelita, because who's on WhatsApp, now believes that Donald Trump is God's gift to man.
Right.
So that's basically where we're at. Okay, great. I love that you threw in the angel-haired hipsters there. What you're saying is that angel-headed hipsters are no longer burning for the ancient heavenly connection and the starry dynamo of the machinery of night. That is gone.
No.
All right, shout out to the two people who got that reference. You know who's not gone? Colin Allred.
Where he's back.
Apparently, he's making a comeback. This is another yay or nay. So we
I
all
blame
know.
Gina Ortiz for winning. Winning mayor.
Maybe, but for those that don't know, Colin Allred ran against Ted Cruz this past election cycle for senator and lost by 8 points. Did not come close, unfortunately. And this coming election cycle, John Cornyn, the other senator from Texas, his seat is up for grabs, and he's facing a contentious primary against our current Lieutenant Governor Ken Paxton. And so Colin Allred decided, you know what, y'all, 2 times the charm, and has decided to throw his name back in the race. Now, yes, he has the familiarity now, you know, name recognition, and may stand a better chance now that people have gotten to know him a little bit more, and he's got, you know, he doesn't have to come from nothing, essentially, come out of nowhere. Like, he can build off of that recognition that he got the first time around. However, this does kind of, if there was anyone else that was even thinking of running on the Democratic side, this kind of just throws him out of the race entirely, because, you
think Beto should run again?
That would be interesting. Well, he never ran for senator.
No. Well, no, he did. He ran against Ted Cruz.
No, didn't he run for governor?
He did do that too. Beto has a bad losing record.
I know, poor Beto. Just stay in El Paso. It's okay.
Or here's another question. Ron.
Not
for those who don't
DeSantis,
know.
Nuremberg.
Yeah, not Ron from Parks and Rec, who we also love.
Yeah.
Ron, former mayor of San Antonio, Ron Nuremberg, who has suggested that he wants to run for office.
I would not be mad at that, you know? But what I think I'm mad at, well, I don't even remember where Colin Allred came from, if we're being honest, like what his background was when he ran 2 years ago.
Right.
But what I'm kind of mad at is the idea that Democrats keep putting forward a lot of more of the same, you know?
That's interesting.
And it's like, well, here's the same person that ran 2 years ago. Let's just put him in a different race, right? And even Ron, you know, whom we love.
He's pretty cookie cutter.
Middle ground, progressive, you know, sort of deal.
Pretty central for a lot.
Central, and as we'll talk about later, you know, like there may be other candidates that are not as well known that could actually speak to what people want, that don't have that name recognition that if the playing field was level, might stand a chance of winning the primary. But because Colin Allred has said, I'm in, he's already 50% more ahead than anyone that's coming in that doesn't know. And yeah, we may be proven wrongs, but so I don't think I have a nope, you're wrong. I think these are just my thoughts.
I think AOC is the problem.
Okay.
And here's the why. and it is just, that's me being facetious. But it's because Democrats voters aren't really Democrats. We're just voting because we have to.
And they're the lesser of two evils.
Right.
As we've talked about many times on this pod.
However, we have seen this surge of shiny new that we like is just not here. And it's not in the majority of this country in Democratic leadership and faces. So I think sometimes the goal becomes we need to find our AOC or we need to find our
the next generation's Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, Cory Booker, Hakeem Jeffries types. And I don't even really like Cory Booker all that much. Because to me, he is like Ron. He's just progressive, but it's pretty cookie cutter centrist. Yeah. Leans a little left.
Plays it safe.
Always welcome on the pod.
Of course.
I think, Buttigieg.
Ron too.
I mean, Pete Buttigieg isn't that progressive.
No, Pete Buttigieg is borderline dino.
Yeah.
Borderline, like centrist Republican running as a Democrat.
Right.
So, which, maybe that's what a moderate or independent is, right? Like somebody that has views that lean both left and right. And if that's the case, then run in as an independent, right?
So this is also the other problem politically is when Bernie went up against Hillary, I think Bernie tapped into something that Trump also tapped into, which is populism. And I think, again, like when you say like it's pretty much the same and it's kind of like yay or nay, it's hard to sort of pull one yet strong answer either way. I think it's because of that. We want a Bernie Sanders. We want someone who is dynamic as a voice and also has dynamic ideas for the future. Because as much as Pete Buttigieg talks about like, well, there's no hope in Republican future, and we have like these hopeful ideas. It's like, but you just want better infrastructure. Yeah, it's like that's great, but like, have you been to Dubai or like Hong Kong or these other countries, Indonesia, like these countries that are like in the year 3088? Yeah, like why can't we have that? And so I think that's a huge part of the problem is they play it safe because they're so afraid to lose. And so going back to the Bernie and Hillary of it, we'll never know if Bernie could have beat Trump. Maybe he could have. Yeah. But I think Democrats like to lean into safe. Yeah. They
the Democratic Party.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that leaves where going full circle the bad taste in your mouth. It's just like when y'all play it safe, it leaves a bad taste in our mouth.
And it feels like we're not getting anything, right? You're not actually meeting our needs, our goals, what the things that we want. And like maybe that was kind of like the appeal to Beto was that, he was going out into the communities, in every community. He went to every single county in this fucking state. You know how big that is? It's a lot. And talk to the people, right? And I think that's what we're missing from a lot of our politicians these days is that they are so far removed from the people that they supposedly represent, and speak on behalf of.
But this also goes back to the time and place conversation where it's hard to be, because I don't want to shit on Colin Allred if he were ever to hear this, but nice enough guy.
Yeah. Again,
and I think could do a good job.
And I don't remember enough about him to make a decision. I just know that my choice was Colin Allred or Ted Cruz, so I was voting for Colin Allred. Right. What I'm saying is like now that a primary is coming up, is there the I think that now that he has this name recognition. And there is a primary for who's going to run against John Cornyn or Ken Paxton, I guess. by doing this, he has kind of eliminated the chances of anybody else running.
He's just kind of taking up airspace.
Yeah, he's like, no, this is mine. I lost it the last time. Here I come again.
I do think that he should be primaried against Ron, but I think if I was Ron, I would just go hard left. Like, why not? Because the other issue that Democrats have is they're trying to win over Republicans, and it's like, as noble as that is. To your point, when you do face-to-face meeting with people stuff, you can win them over every time because we have better ideas. The problem is you're up against an entire 24/7 right-wing media apparatus, from Fox News to The Blaze to
Sinclair, all of it. We've talked about it.
Yeah. And that's really where you lose these people. And so unless, like, you have to, I don't care how much door knocking, bro. Stop knocking on my fucking door, Democrats. You got my vote from here. I'm against Nazis.
No, nobody knocks on my door, but God, do I get these text messages.
Yeah. Well, see, I never signed up from text messages.
I don't think I ever did either.
I always just donate in person.
I get text messages being like, hey, Ashley, are you registered to vote this? I'm like, who the fuck is Ashley?
Ashley, if you're out there, you did dirty. She put the wrong number. Y'all have the same number. She was just one digit off.
All right. Well, Colin Allred, welcome on the pod. If you want to defend your point, please come on by. But we'll see how it goes. You have one more.
Do I? What was it?
Keith David.
Oh, yeah. So Keith David, the actor, if you see a photo of him, you'll be like, oh, it's him. I like him. Yeah. He's just been a long-time actor in Hollywood, usually just plays that guy. Like, he's always in the background, or like he's always a third or fourth character in some films. Recently got a Hall of Fame on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Yeah. And very excited for him for that. This is just more on like the fun ski that I do believe, but I think we need more ... of fames. Like, we just need
like a Walk of Fame, like a Wall of Fame,
just more around of that. Can we get more of fames? Wall of Fame. Because I think we're
from the. I think
they're
the Subway of
aspirational.
Fame.
Yeah, let's say you go to your local. I don't know. Is there a local restaurant nearby that you go to frequently?
Taqueria Jalisco.
Okay, you should be on their Hall of Fame.
Okay,
they need the customers of fame. Like, it's aspirational. It's archival.
Sure. You know what? And I think they exist. They're just not of the same fame as the Walk of Fame.
Nah, I'm not seeing enough, man.
So I'll give you an example. The Laredo Center for the Arts down in Laredo has a wall of Laredoans of fame, of people from Laredo that have gone on to accomplish great things in their own sectors. And ¿cómo se llama este? He just released an album of Black Pumas and Grupo Fantasma fame.
Oh, homeboy, I forget.
God. Oh, it's right. But you know, whatever. Yeah. He's from Laredo. He's on there. There was another director, Alfonso Gomez Rejon. I think technically what the guy from, he's been in everything. Did you see Better Call Saul?
Yeah.
He's
Saul.
No, he's not Saul. But the Mexican leader guy with the mustache.
Oh, yeah.
That guy is from Laredo. But anywho, so they have a whole wall.
Oh, yeah. Like at Palo Alto College where I work, they have like a former alumni wall of fame. But I'm saying let's more granular. Get as granular as you can get. Like, if you go to, like, you should be in the Hall of Fame for the leather supplies you buy from that store. You know what I mean? Like, let's just be more what's the word? Not manifesting, more
celebratory.
It is celebratory, but I'm thinking
acknowledging,
present, like more conscious about these things. Let's put it in more places.
Let's put it out there everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
All right, we're gonna start one in this room.
Okay? Yeah, or we kind of have one on ours, but let's make it official. Who's on our Hall of Fame for guests?
I think it's Paul and JR.
I think there. So you're saying the homie Chris needs a couple more?
Maybe the homie Chris needs a couple more. But I think it's
Glow needs
Paul,
a few more.
Yeah, Glow's only been on one. Technically, only been on half.
That's true. She left halfway.
She had to leave early,
so she can't be on the Hall of Fame.
No, but she has said that she wants to come back.
What was your friend from New York? Catherine? No.
Caitlin has been on 2.
But I wouldn't say Hall of Fame.
No.
But at the same time, zooming in is cool.
I know, and that's putting in an effort. So
yeah, Hall of Fames.
We're going to start a Puro Pinche Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And we'll announce the inaugural nominees for the first star on the Puro Pinche Hall of Fame. And if Paul doesn't win, he might be very upset. But, we'll see what happens.
Hate mail.
Moving on to our next segment, just because we gotta talk about it. It's 15 minutes for the bullshit or shit that's killing me. A couple of things that came through most recently that just need addressing.
So much.
I guess. I mean, a lot has come through, but the 2 big ones that we did decide that we want to talk about, and if something else comes up, well, I guess we'll talk about it. One, the big bullshit bill that just passed.
It happened.
50-50 in the Senate with the vice president breaking the tie. And
fuck you, Murkowski.
And I believe passed by 2 votes in the House, maybe 3. But I did hear that it would have, if it did pass by 2, it would have been 3, except because the vote happened in the middle of the night, one Republican slept through it. So what does it mean? What's in it? What isn't in it?
Fire away.
Well, I didn't write much notes, but we did talk about there was going to be a provision in there where if any state enacted AI regulation, they were not going to receive federal funding for broadband. That's how they got it through the parliamentarian. And that is, first of all, got negotiated down because of Tennessee, of all places. Did you know they have an Elvis Act?
An Elvis Act?
Like a law? Like a bill, yes. The
For what?
Elvis Act. It's about using copyrighted material from musicians in order to train your AI.
Oh.
And they worked very hard on the names so that the acronym spells Elvis.
Oh, right.
Shout out to Tennessee for every once in a while doing something.
I'll give them some credit.
You were in Knoxville. It's beautiful.
Even though the Elvis ripped everyone off.
That part. But it got reduced, and then at the last minute, it just got pulled entirely because Ted Cruz is a dirtbag. And he was the one that was pushing this through, and it really had no place being in that bill. States were like, no, we want to regulate. So that got taken out. What did stay was Uber tax cuts for the mega rich. Very little, if any, tax cuts for the not rich. And a net loss for anyone basically living in the bottom 80%, and definitely if you are a recipient of Medicaid or SNAP, those 2 programs got substantially, they didn't per se get defunded, but they got more regulated so that the goal is millions of people lose it. Therefore, they're not spending as much money on it. Either way, it's not good.
Not as bad times, man.
It's bad.
Super bad.
Don't know if we have anything else to say on that.
I have just a few things. I think, where was I going to start? I guess, one thing that you also forgot, it's going to add an extra $5 trillion to our
national
debt.
That part.
So future generations are still fucked. We're still on the line for this because we're still young enough that, it's going to stick with us for a while.
They cut Medicaid today, then they cut Medicare, and then they cut Social Security.
And SNAP, and a lot of other things. This was a way, and again, I hate so much that everything that's happened was in Project 2020.
It all was 2024. It was all there. Project 2025.
Yes, Project 2025. It was like, this is in, because so what this was truly, and what I think Democrats dropped the ball on, is Republicans learned that they can't come after Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act, however you want to slice it. People love it. It's popular. It helped so many people. It should have gone further. They lose whenever they say, hey, we're going to cut your affordable health. We're going to kill Obamacare. We're going to kill Obamacare. We're going to pass legislation to kill Obamacare. They hate it. It's a loser when they say, we're going to kill SNAP for people. We're going to end welfare recipients things because 70% of people are living check to check, and a lot of people are on a lot more people than you might realize are on obtaining benefits. And so those are losers when they create laws for those things. So ultimately, and again, this was all in Project 2025, just don't give it money and it dies.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. So they killed Obamacare, they killed SNAP. They're killing education as well for things like, again, it's when they campaign on ending things like English as a second language or any sort of after school programs or
adult learning programs.
They lose because people are like, well, we like those things. We want to keep those things. So rather than do that, just don't give them those things money.
And the way that they did this too in packaging it all together as one giant 1,000+ page bill made it so that even the Republicans who didn't like everything in the bill had to vote for it because it was Trump's bill and their constituents like Trump. And even though they may feel like, oh, well, I'm going to have some constituents that suffer because they're on Medicaid, they like Trump and they don't want their tips taxed. So,
which they weren't going to be.
By packaging it all together, they made it impossible to really parse anything out and made it impossible for people to really vote against it because it was an all or nothing bill.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the time that they tried to they put the legalization of marijuana on a bill here in Texas or San Antonio. I forget if it was if it was statewide, but it was like the bill was like legalize weed and prostitution and like it was like we do all of it or none of it. And even though some people were like, well, let's legalize weed.
It was like damn it, what do they call those things? Like Provision A or something like that. It had like a name.
It had multiple things where it's like, well, I do want to legalize weed, but I also don't want to cut funding to our schools.
Right.
So I guess none of it.
It was like legalize marijuana and like defund the police.
Something. Yeah. It was all lumped together. So yes, when you lump it all together and you make it a zero-sum game.
It was a proposition something.
Yeah.
Prop 9 or something.
So there goes that. That's the strategy. And I guess it worked.
And I'll be honest, dude, I am so worried about everything today as it got passed. And I knew it was going to get passed, but I feel like we are well past a threshold. It's only been 6 months.
I know.
And as the complicated network of yes men and authoritarian bootlickers continue to rise on their side, like I just foresee so much more fuck shit coming down.
And single issue hawks. As I think that is driving a lot of this too, where it's like the Stephen Millers of it all, where it's like he has one goal and he has narrowed in on that and is doing everything to make sure that gets accomplished. And when you've got that kind of person on multiple fronts,
and also if you can't get the thing that you want, then just break it, cause chaos, and then step away. Yeah, like the wild thing. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much.
Let's
time
not dive in. It's only 15 minutes for the bullshit.
And it's a holiday, and I need to go eat something.
Yeah, here you go. The other bullshit was the Supreme Court threw out a ton of decisions as they went on holiday break.
They exploded.
They did. They were just like, decision. Most of them not great.
So I blame Joe Biden.
Great.
And I've come to a final...
As most of us have, actually.
Yes, but... Yes, and. I think we're looking at this wrong. Okay. Joe Biden's original sin was after winning the election, after the January 6th insurrection, he did not salt the earth. He did not like lay complete. He should have immediately stacked the court, immediately push through because the other thing that's happening too is did you see the Texas gerrymandering conversation that's happening? They want to redraw Texas again so that we lose more fucking Democrats.
Yes.
And you know who's coming to save the day? Fucking the governor of Newsom from California, because he said basically if y'all do that, I'm going to redraw our shit so that we maintain the same amount.
Yeah.
So good luck.
The idea here was to create, I think, something like 2 or 3 additional seats that will obviously be Republican, but in that they do run the risk of losing a few as well. So they may or may not do it.
But that's what I mean is these motherfuckers, it's not even that, because Mitch McConnell is a dick. And but in this weird way, was kind of halfway playing by the rules.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that Joe Biden had, is if you played even halfway by the rules, he gave you a fucking pass. Mm-hmm. And he really believed in bipartisanship, and he really believed in this unity conversation that comes up all across podcasts and social media sometimes, now's the time for unity. Yeah. As we're looking fascism in the face. With Joe, it should have been salt the fucking earth, bro. You can't let this shit breathe. And now we're here.
Well, he was never going to do it. He ran on this platform of we're all going to come together as a nation and everything's going to be all right. He didn't
win because he won over Republicans. Let's keep it a buck.
Yeah.
He won because people were dying at 1,500 to 2,000 people a clip a day.
Yeah.
We were in our homes, terrified, and that fucking moron can't talk about shit. They looked at him. What are we doing? Oh, you put the bleach or we're figure it out. There's the China virus and it's this guy's a fucking moron. And that's the problem with his supporters, is they have this huge retroactive history of thought. And I think most people in general, again, time and place, just the narratives get created so that what we actually experience gets just gaslit to shit. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, man. Now it's scary times, bro. If they pass the thing on birthright citizenship, and again, it's well, then what about Barron Trump? What about all your kids? What about your wives?
Yeah.
Why aren't they getting deported? Why? And who they're targeting. This is clearly a scapegoat, and I don't know, man. We got concentration camps, Chibby.
Yeah.
Alligator Alcatraz, that's a concentration camp.
Yeah.
They're all, and for who? It's for this prison industry complex. And so I'm just dude, how does and this kind of segues into something I think I put on later. I might have put it on. I think it's on the next part, so we'll get to it then. Anyway, that's all I gotta say, bro. This shit is fucking.
So there were a number of things. They upheld a ban for gender-affirming care for minors in Tennessee. And the way that this basically went, they didn't rule on the legality of the law itself. They just ruled that it was not a discrimination on the basis of sex. Mm-hmm. And it did not require, what did they call it, heightened scrutiny or something like that. So it stays. South Carolina Planned Parenthood losing a lot of Medicaid funds. Age verification for porn sites is not restricting free speech, apparently. Porn sites will be required to, or can be required.
No, in Texas at least they are.
Well, yes.
And they're all starting to leave.
But that's why, they can be required to verify age, and that is not a restriction on our free speech, on our First Amendment rights. On the same front, religious freedoms, parents can opt out of having their children participate in a specific curriculum, which, if I have a child and we put them in public school, when they're teaching anything about heterosexuality, I want that kid out of there. We don't need to know about all of that. Mm-hmm. And then the big one was the birthright citizenship one, which, again, was not being argued. It was not arguing the merits of the constitutionality of whether or not Trump's executive order is or is not constitutional, because that's not what they were appealing. Mm-mm. What they were appealing was whether or not the lower courts had the jurisdiction to issue nationwide injunctions. It's interesting, though, because the way that Amy Coney Barrett phrased it was that they believe that they likely overstepped their reach by issuing this nationwide injunction. So it does kind of leave a door partially open to continue to argue this in some way, right?
Yeah.
And it does leave room for exceptions to be made wherein nationwide injunctions can still take place. Okay. But at the same time, what this then puts is the onus on people to fight every single front on their own or via class action lawsuit, which are ridiculously complicated. And the thing on that is it doesn't incentivize an appeal, because let's just say California. Let's say California argues it. The California judge rules that it is unconstitutional. The Trump administration doesn't appeal it. And so therefore it's not in effect in California, but it's still in effect everywhere else. If they did appeal the actual thing being litigated and it made its way to the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court would decide that it is not constitutional because it's in the Constitution.
Yeah. And it just depends on the state that you're in. So if a judge in Arizona says a child who was born here is not a citizen for whatever reason because two of his parents weren't born here or whatever the case may be, that individual child has to go through an entire arduous case to eventually potentially make it to the Supreme Court. And it's just chaos and breaking the system. And it's fascinating to me because he spent so much time installing judges, but everything that he's doing is so off the fucking map.
So obviously unconstitutional.
Yeah, that even they're like, we can't do that, man. So again, it's just a way of breaking the order of things.
And that's why they're not arguing the merits of the case. They're arguing whether they argued whether the judge had the authority
to shut it down
everywhere. And
which, you think the Constitution would shut it down everywhere.
Right? You would think that you wouldn't even have to argue this, but here we are. In this clusterfuck. Let's get out of here.
Well, thank y'all for listening. We don't have any words of motivation. No, it's
that was it.
Time.
It was just 15 minutes for the bullshit.
Yeah.
And let's move on. Let's talk about something that is happening. We alluded to this earlier, but Democratic Socialist Mamdani defeated Cuomo in the Democratic primary for mayor of New York City, almost guaranteeing that he will be the next mayor of New York City.
Fuck Eric Adams.
Yes, very much so. Now independent Eric Adams, formerly Democratic Eric Adams.
Yeah.
What you got to say about this?
I love the right-wing meltdown over it.
and the left-wing meltdown, if we'll talk
about that. But the reason why I love it is because this is just like so transparent to me how they're just going to keep unloading the clip of lies until someone slaps the shit out of them.
Well, what's funny too is the clip of lies are not lies, and it's like I saw this clip where it's like, here's what Republicans stand for and here's what Democrats stand for, and this was on Fox News, right? A graphic up there listing everything, and it's like on the Republican side, it was like tax breaks for big business, free enterprise, free market capitalism, blah blah, and on like the Democratic side, it was like free public transport and
better education.
And it's like, well, yeah, when you put it that, the latest clip I saw was a picture of someone in a hijab and a really badly dressed drag queen sitting in the subway together. And it's like, this is what Democrats want. And I was like, you mean religious freedom and people being able to be whatever gender expression they want while riding free public transport? Yeah, that's what I want. What's the problem?
Yeah, like people going to work.
Yeah.
Having a job to go to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, no, the lie I'm talking about is Trump and Republicans love to say New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco are these cesspools. They're not, you can't even go there. They're just crime-ridden cesspools full of shit and shitty people and, democratic socialists, already Marxists, blah, 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 blah. The second this dude got elected, now New York is the greatest city on earth and we have to protect it forever from an actual democratic socialist.
I haven't even seen that argument.
No, like they do that all the time. It's just, these crime-ridden. The problem is New York City, and it's these crime-ridden, anarchy-filled cities of lawlessness. They've said it about us too a little bit. Basically, any democratic city that's progressive, they're just like, it's the worst place in the world. You can't live there. It's unlivable. But now that New York got a democratic socialist who's progressive, now, it's this beacon of America needs to be protected at all costs. It's like, you said it was a fucking... It was
a shit show.
Yeah, it was the Warriors like 2 seconds ago. You said it was fucking Escape from New York, but now it's got to be it's the holy land of the United States. Get the fuck out of here.
But I did love that even the left was kind of losing their shit over this guy, because they were too progressive. And I think this is what we were talking about earlier, to where, like, no, what we want is someone that actually speaks to our needs and wants to fix the problems that directly affect us. And, maybe not a sexual harasser, right? Or whatever. What was Cuomo accused of?
Well, it was sexual harassment. But then, Eric Adams, too, is like, he was, terrible.
He's a mess, right? So... what the people want is someone that actually listens to them and wants to try and solve their problems, not solve made-up problems.
Right.
So shout out to him. Speaking of problems a little closer to home, there's a dissent in the ranks between Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Ken Paxton, wherein Ken Paxton worked very hard to get this THC ban through the legislature, and it passed, and Abbott vetoed it. And I remember, who was it? Cosmic Ray was like, what the fuck? Why is Abbott doing this? And I'm like, because capitalism, friend.
That's right.
Because capitalism. So what is happening now, though, is Abbott is calling a special session back because it should be regulated, is his thought. And you know what? Yeah, I'll say it. My thought too, right? Like the same way that alcohol is regulated, right?
Fucking fascist.
Go ahead and regulate, THC as well, right? Let's maybe not let 12-year-olds smoke a bunch of THC. I can attest firsthand to the harm of that. And so it's interesting because the only reason that this passed was because of how big of the only reason that this was vetoed was because of how big of an industry it now is in Texas when they accidentally let this through, because it was not on purpose. And too many people with too much money were like, stop this. And so he did.
They were like, suck my THC.
And so he did, and now they kind of hate each other, but
girls, y'all need to calm down, all right?
We currently still have access to products with low amounts of THC, known as hemp, and there will be some regulation coming down the pipeline, but at the very least, the all-out ban did not go through. So,
question mark?
Well, no, it did not go through.
No, I know, but I mean, like, what happens next is a question mark.
Oh, what happens next is, regulation, because I think Abbott's been pretty clear that, like, an all-out ban.
Between the ladies.
Oh, that is the question mark.
Yeah, that's the question mark. I want to see what happens.
Lieutenant Governor tries to run for governor next cycle, maybe.
Ooh.
On to another really weird thing that is going on. In case you missed it, Trump's latest grift is the Trump phone and the Trump wireless network.
Made in China.
Exactly. So the Trump phone is a gold-plated phone that is actually just a T-Mobile phone that is made in China. They were making the claim that it's 100% U.S. made. They have since retracted that statement and said that it will be 100%
in
5-10 years
when people realize it's a piece of shit.
And also the wireless service is a piece of shit.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah, I mean, well, it's this interesting thing. Mint Mobile?
Yeah.
And their kind of like strategy around how they work.
It's not a fit. No.
So the way what Mint Mobile did was basically they went to all the
cell phone providers,
major cell phone providers, AT&T, T-Mobile, Spectrum, I don't know, whoever else is out there. And we're like, hey, you've got all this extra bandwidth. What if we bought that extra bandwidth from you and essentially rented it to our customers, right? So that is what Trump Wireless is doing. And so you're paying for a shitty service that like works most of the time, but if there's a spike in service on the network that is being rented for your wireless service, guess who's losing their service?
Yeah.
You. So, latest grift from Big Daddy Trump.
He's bottomless, bro.
Who recently lost their shit over them calling him daddy? Somebody. God, where was this? I think this was at the summit that they went to recently in Canada. That somebody referred to Trump as daddy, and like a Republican like lost their shit and was like, yeah, you all know what that means, right? Like, I don't know what's...
They don't.
I don't know who's letting this happen.
I think that's the other... There's this...
It's real gay. Let's just put it that way.
Straight up. But it's also this like weird divide where I see... just reality is eating its own tail, man. Like just the way people fold themselves into pretzels for that guy. You know, we got to go after the criminals. Well, he's a criminal. Like, well, he doesn't count. Or you know, we need a Christian nation. Well, he's not really a Christian, and thoughts, you know, responsibility or any of that. Well, he's a tool for Christ, and it's just like I can't.
A tool.
Yeah, you know, he's not a grifter. He's a businessman. He's even though his businesses fail, it's like, well, you know, I just can't anymore with this.
It's a lot. Well, speaking of criminals, the verdict is in on Sean Puffy Diddy Combs, and did Diddy do it? He did it. Some of it. Not all of it.
Did a little bit of it.
Did a little bit of it. So the jury came back and essentially he got not guilty on the most severe, heinous, severe charges against him, which were racketeering and sex trafficking. But he did get guilty for travel to engage in prostitution on both counts, each with a maximum penalty of up to 10 years each. So not life in prison, but also not exonerated. So
I mean, I think he's done no matter how you slice it. So
we'll see what happens. But that saga is now kind of sort of over, I guess, until the sentencing comes down, which, you know, but apparently it was highly watched, contagious, a whole media circus from what I heard.
Yeah, I'm not tapped in on that.
Okay. Next, you put this one.
Yeah, man.
Gallup poll
found that 58.
Rooster's still over here stewing on the 15 minutes of bullshit we had to get through.
A new Gallup poll came out that found that just 58% of adults in the United States are, quote, extremely or, quote, very proud to be American, the lowest in 2 decades. Apparently, this is a decline that has been happening since 2016. I still feel like 58% is too high.
I think so, too.
That was a lot.
There was another one. It was the opposite, where it was like people were feeling really bad about certain situations, the economy, et cetera, and it was like the highest it's ever been. So, you know, it's not happy times.
What's happening with American pride?
Well,
here's a sub question.
Well, I can tell you. Let me answer that one. The issue with American pride it is now directly related to fascism. Is the problem, you know, like I do not want to be associated with what the world perceives to be America, right? Because that's not my America, you know, not in our streets. And I think American pride has been kind of co-opted by Christian nationalists and the far right. And it's made a lot of us really uneasy, and it's not, you know, and I'll say this for myself, right? Like, I don't hate America. I hate what's happening, right? And I can be hypercritical of America, and I can address its faults while also addressing the things that I love about it. Like, just because I point out what's bad about it doesn't mean that I hate it, right? But I think American pride and American exceptionalism have somehow become
had an orgy.
Yeah, they had some sort of orgy together, and now they're tied. You know, they're attached at the dick.
Yeah,
and they can't. You know, you can't separate them. And I don't believe in American exceptionalism, but I do believe that this country is full of a lot of amazing people, and when we come together, we can do amazing things.
I like the optimism. That was nice.
So, maybe that's my motivational message for the week. I don't know.
Could be.
What was the other question you were going to ask?
American pride equals what? I guess, what is there to be proud of?
I know. Oh my God. This would be a perfect moment to cue up the opening 10 minutes of the newsroom.
Right.
And just play that clip.
Like, I think that's, I've been struggling the last couple of weeks with just a lot of the news that's been coming out, a lot of the just from the riots in LA to ICE raids to just a lot of terrible things happening. And I think there's a section of this country that feels like America is a well-functioning garden. The problem is we have to get rid of all the weeds.
Yeah.
And then they just change whatever the name of the weeds are.
Yeah.
But we're the greatest garden of all time. Versus how I see the United States, which is we are a non-functioning garden. Nothing's growing. And the water company is getting all the money. So we're just watering all kinds of not shit so that the water company gets all the money, and yet nothing is growing, nothing is flourishing. And then Republicans are like, it's because the weeds. It's like, no. It's because nothing is
it's because the water company
is
cutting off the water.
Yeah, it's a whole... So that's how I view America.
Come through, poet, with the metaphor.
Right? However... Oh, that was going to be my question. Do you want to be proud of America? Like, how American do you feel? Because this is something that I always question.
It's okay. So, how much time do we have?
Right.
Because to unpack the notion,
this will just be the mighty mighty big news. How American does Chibbi and Rooster?
Because to unpack the notion of pride in identity, right, is essentially what we're talking about here, right? I don't often consider myself an American more than I consider myself a Southerner.
Sure.
Is a thing, right? Because,
I consider myself a Texan more than a...
Yeah, than an American. And even that, comes with its own problems of dilemmas because Texas is fucked up in its own ways, but also Texas is beautiful in its own ways.
Sure.
And it's this love-hate thing. And so, I do want to be proud of the place that I live. And the things that we do and what we stand for. The problem is that the people on a federal level, on a national level, are stripping away all of that, right? And so I can't be. And that's where I say, this place is full of really great people, right? And I think for me, that's where I go back to a really granular level of all right, well, who is in my circle? And who is my community of people? And what are we doing? And what do we stand for, right? And how are we making where we live a better place? Because I don't have any control over what's happening nationally. And so I think that's where the idea of American pride, no. But
so would you want to be proud of America?
I would.
And I'm not saying that America, because I don't know. So are you proud to be Mexican? Or do you have any Mexico pride?
Well, and that I think I have pride in my the aspects of my culture that I like, that I agree with, right? But similarly, there's a lot to disagree with Mexican culture. Sure. A lot of colorism, a lot of machismoism, that, by and by it's overcoming, but same thing. I think the thing about being...
Honestly, though, I got to cut you off real quick. Those are very minuscule when we're talking. We talk about concentration camps. And it's
yes, we are talking about concentration
versus,
camps.
Fucking Hector wants to pay the bill every time and tell this woman to shut up.
I don't know.
It's bad.
Colorism and racism is pretty high up there.
Sure.
So, it's got its issues, right? But I think if you truly are proud of something, it's because you accept the good and the bad and you're working on the bad. Right? You know, I want to be proud of myself. I still got a lot of bad in me that I got to work on, right? And I have to accept that in order to, the first way to fix a problem is to name the problem. And so, like, yeah, you know,
Is pride overrated?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You know,
You heard it here, folks. Chibby said cancel Pride Month 2026.
Please do. No, I saw this brilliant meme. Happy Pride to all the other queers out there. But I saw this fantastic little TikTok or Instagram reel of like gays at the start of Pride. And it's these like giant mascot Pikachus, you know, just like 10 of them, 12 of them, just like dancing like gays at the end of Pride, and it's one Pikachu face down in a puddle in a pouring rain. And it's like, yeah.
Does Pride need to be shorter?
Pride needs to not be in June.
It's hot than a bitch.
That's what it is. Damn Judy Garland for being born in June. But I think that's that. I think that's the main thing. At least in.
What if it was just a day?
Oh, that'd be great. You know,
like, and everyone could just go.
What if we just turn them all into a day?
I'm kind of thinking this might be a
Hispanic Heritage Day, Black History Day,
blow it up,
Women's Day.
Let's really
all
blow
day.
it up, like.
Yeah,
or 2 days.
Sure, a weekend.
Yeah, and it's always make it always like on a Friday, and it's a national holiday.
There you go. Friday through Sunday to celebrate, and then we have 52 of them.
I agree.
And every identity gets one. Yeah. Columbus, fine. All you Italian people, go for it. St. Patrick's is for you.
Bingo.
You know, Hispanic heritage. One great weekend on the 16 de septiembre. Okay, I'm here for it.
Because that's it. Because this goes into my thing about pride that I was going to say is my problem with American pride and why I don't have any is because historically and just in my lifetime, I feel like I have never been allowed and sort of kept out of American.
To own Americanism?
Well, yeah. And it's like I was explaining this to someone not too long ago over the debate about like, why are people waving the Mexican flags in LA? Like, and why aren't they like, and there were some activists who were like, y'all should be doing American flags so that for optics. And I had this problem with it. And it's that I didn't just ask to have a hyphen in my identity. You know what I mean? Like, y'all put the wall there. Like, it has to be Mexican American or Chinese American, Black American. Like, we didn't put that there. And so
that's why my nope, you're wrong a number of episodes was European Americans. Let's bring that back.
Yeah. And so it becomes this thing to where, you know, does Mexico always love us on this side of the border? No. But I think it's
or that side, to be honest.
But see, I think there's still a closer bond than say like Italian Americans and Italians. Sure. You know, like, bro, you're there. Like, I can see you. Like, you're behind the bushes. You're across the river. I see you. And so it's like they can't do that. Going to what we were talking about earlier and why I feel closer to being Tejano is because here in Texas, they can't erase Mexican influence, or victories, or like, or history,
or existence,
exactly. Where it's like, so we get to share in the wins of this complicated place. So while yes, it is fraught with all types of bad things, it's also acknowledging a lot of those bad things. It's also, we're still have been allowed to historically contribute to the great things about the state of Texas. Like, you know, I don't feel that in this country outside of here. And not for nothing. Like, I don't feel like, you know, I don't know. I could care less about Ohio or New York City. And it's love, you know, but it's like, y'all don't ever claim San Antonio for shit. And I get it.
So I ain't claiming Cleveland.
Yeah. Like, you know, no one, you know. And
yeah. And I think that's why I said, you know, like more than American, I feel like a Southerner. Cause like anytime I go to the North, I feel like, what the fuck is this? And who are these people? And we have nothing in common. Right. And that's not true, you know, like, but I do feel like an outsider. You know, when I go out there, I feel like an outsider
every time I leave Texas.
Yeah.
Like, but what's funny is like, cause like Florida is a funny state to me because while they do have a Latino population and you have Miami and stuff like that, it just feels like the rest of the country to me. Like Texas doesn't feel like the rest of the country to me.
Not at all.
And maybe it's because we have like this culture that this historical culture that we heavily lean into, whether it's cowboys and Indians and boots and armadillos and
which isn't to shit on New Mexico either, because that culture is cool as fuck.
Oh yeah, they're cool and like fucking respect.
We'll take New Mexico.
Yeah, well they don't want us either. They're happy, and I'm getting respect, bro. They're the weird cousin. I love y'all. You know, but yeah,
you know what? We invented Dr. Pepper.
We did.
That's it.
We did.
We're winning at life. You know the story behind that? I just heard it, where the original plant was in Waco.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
And the person that invented Dr. Pepper, where it was invented, it was like it was a smell in the air, and he's like, whatever that smell is, I want to bottle that and make it a drink. And that's where Dr. Pepper came from.
I've been to Waco. It don't smell like Dr. Pepper
anymore.
But yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. And then we have streets like Guadalupe and, you know, all of the Rio Grande Valley and places where Mexican American and Mexican
and we have
heroes.
Desilu Drive.
Yeah.
We got it all. We got it both.
Yeah. We got Stevie Ray Vaughan and fucking Beyonce.
Exactly.
And so it's
and Selena.
And Selena. Yeah. And so it cuts this interesting cross section that I feel way more attached to than I ever have about the United States.
Shout out to my ode to Texas.
Yeah.
All right. And lastly, in case you missed it, the New York Times released its top 100 movies of the 21st century. And Rooster wants to know, what the fuck are we even doing anymore?
What are we even doing, bro?
The top 100 movies of the past 25 years.
2. Have you seen Mulholland Drive?
I feel like we're under the influence of a lot of drugs, so I couldn't. I could not.
You know what's crazy? Even not under the influence of a lot of drugs, that movie is under the influence of a lot of drugs.
Well, yes, I do remember that. So Parasite is number 1.
I wouldn't say number 1, but cool.
I mean, and I think
there's a lot of like great, cool.
I was going through the list, and none of these did I really feel like you don't deserve to be here, right? There were a lot that like I don't know, right? Like I don't know what In the Mood for Love is, but none really stood out as like, what the fuck are you doing here? I think the only one that I was like, oh yeah, it was Everything Everywhere All at Once. I was like, that deserved to be higher on the list in my heart of hearts.
No, for sure.
But
like The Dark Knight was high.
The Dark Knight was a damn good movie.
I think it was even over like City of God or something.
No, City of God was number 10. Yes, City of God was number 10. And I think this is a great list of movies, and the ones that I haven't seen on here, I will probably go try and find.
No, there's definitely some, especially like some newer ones that were on there that I'm like, okay, like Zone of Influence, I think it's called, or Interest.
Moonlight's up there. I love that Fury Road is up there.
Fury Road deserves to be up there. That movie was like something else. But I think a lot of it was the order of it. I think there were some movies that deserve to be on there that just kind of they slept on.
Okay. Well, there's a whole nother podcast devoted to that thing exactly.
So go check it out.
The Underrated Favorites. All right, it's time for the mighty big news. We've been talking a lot, but we haven't been talking about men. And is it time to talk? Actually, we have been talking about men. Rooster, you brought this. Tell me what's going on.
So on the timelines across the United States, there is a growing concern, and it has to do with what is being called the male loneliness epidemic.
Oh, wait a second.
So in the 19th News, which I highly encourage a lot of people to go follow, they're a pretty like nonpartisan,
non-traditional,
definitely non-traditional media, where it's kind of like they don't do much in the way of editorials; they just report.
Cool.
Reported about men struggling with isolation, economic pressure, and toxic influences. So, over a third of young men, over a third of young men between 18 and 24 feel that no one will fall in love with them. 69% of young men agree that no one cares if men are okay. This has also been seen as the rise of incel behavior, the manosphere in media. Gen Z are heading more towards republicanism, Gen Z boys. 15% of men now feel like they have no close friends, which is up from 3% in 1990s. However, it is also important to understand that while 16% of men feel lonely all the time, 15% of women feel the same way. So just want to hit that out there. The podcaster and Professor Scott Galloway says it's a crisis of unemployment and under-socialization. Women are graduating from college at greater rates than men. And when you add things like race, ethnicity, community colleges, and socioeconomics, it gets even worse. Men are now getting more prone to cardiovascular issues, stroke, dementia. Male suicide is on the rise, and it was peaking in 2022. So yeah, I guess the other side of this is this just a male pity party, or is this a real issue? Because part of it, I'll just kind of say it like this. Scott Galloway, who I'm a fan of, but I don't agree with all of his things, obviously, makes the point that whereas we have used DEI, affirmative action, and just creating resources for communities who were historically left out, that's great, that we are at a tipping point potentially where, men are overlooked and more to the point, white men are being overlooked in certain spaces. I recently had a conversation with someone who I don't want to name them right now, but they organize readings and such. And as we were we just hit me up to spitball some names, and sure enough, it was like majority like women of color, like queer artists and things like that. And it was like cool. And then it was like we hit this moment like, do we need to add a white guy? Like, like there's
I'm familiar with the conversation.
It happens, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I guess like they're missing from the calendars these days. And so I don't know, like I raise all this up because going back to the Andrew Schultz conversation earlier and how media is changing, I do see very important and like ramifications from whatever this is happening. Does that mean that it's our job to do something about it?
Okay, so there's a number of points here. Yes. To start, this is going to sound
callous and evil.
No, not callous and evil. No, what I'm about to say is going to sound very off-brand. But I was listening to a podcast that was interviewing Kevin O'Leary.
I hate that fucking asshole.
Of course. AKA Mr. Wonderful. But he was talking, he was mentioning how like this idea of like DEI has never been an issue for him or any of his companies because he is always hired on the notion of merit. Right. So he has men, women, all different races. Like it's just all across the board because he doesn't care who you are, where you come from. Just can you do it and can you do it well? Right. In that same conversation, he did say that the vast majority of his CEOs are women because they do it better. So I think that is one where this may be happening because for so long, the reason that programs like diversity, equity, and inclusion policies had to be put in place was because for so long, white men were just given the opportunity over more qualified people because they were white men. And the unspoken implication or understanding that because you're a white man, you deserve it more, or you're just going to naturally be better at it, or racism, or whatever, right? And so I would argue that there has been a generational conditioning that things will just happen for and a cultural kind of like understanding that good things are going to happen to you because you're a white man.
Right.
Versus, black people, brown people, women, transgender, queer have always had to work to make things happen for them. And now that it seems like the playing field is becoming a little more even, they're being left behind because they're being outworked by people that have had to work their entire lives to get what they want, right? On the notion of loneliness, it's not a man problem. It's a society problem. There is an epidemic of loneliness because we have forgotten or never learned, specifically for younger generations, how to socialize and how to be in community. Esther Perel has some really great books and articles about it. I highly recommend people to go listen, watch, whatever, consume Esther Perel's stuff. But the idea of like, we are as a species naturally communal, right? Like that is how we have survived for millennia. And kind of how we were talking about earlier, where things have dramatically changed in the past 25 years versus the previous 100 years, right? Like before, it would take generations for a real societal cultural shift to happen, right? The 1880s did not look that different from the 1910s, right? But the 1880s looked very different from the 1980s. Now, over the course of 30 years, we have undergone so many changes at such a rapid pace that society is at this like point, right? Point. For those of you that are watching this, for those of you that are watching this and not just listening to it, you got it. And so an entire generation of people, and I almost kind of, have sympathy for them because it is not their fault that their parents gave them an iPhone instead of teaching them how to socialize with other kids. Right. And so they have been conditioned to isolate. How many times, in the past 10, 15, I don't know, because people of my generation, at least the people I hang out with, are barely having kids. Right. But those that had kids younger, were you at a family gathering where all the adults are convening and all the kids are on their iPads or iPhones isolated, right? So they never learned. And so this idea of like men feeling like they're never going to find someone that loves them. Well, yeah, if all you do is sit on an app and swipe left and right, and then you go on one date and it sucks because you don't know how to socialize. So what do? You go back to the app and you swipe left and right again. Then you go on another date and it sucks because you never learned how to socialize. Well, yeah, you're going to feel like you're going to be alone for the rest of your life because you never learned how to be with other people,
right? And
how to make real human connections.
Yeah.
So I think it's entirely valid to have this conversation. I don't think it's isolated, at least the loneliness conversation. It's obviously not isolated to just men or just white men for that, or just white people for that matter. I do think some cultures do it better.
Sure.
And I do think men are being left behind because they're just not working as hard, and feel entitled or feel like they're being overlooked because other people have been boosted to the same playing field, whereas before they were actively suppressed.
Yeah.
Right. And, work harder, and that's just speaking on a gender and race level. Like that's not even talking about social economic status, because obviously, like a rich white young man that comes from means is going to feel very differently than a rich poorer man. Than a white poor man, right? Like it's different struggles because there's different things culturally and socially that they're brought up through. So, all that to say is yes, the study is right and shit needs to be done about it. But like, I don't think the answer is oh, poor white men, let's make sure they have a seat at the table. It's like, you had seats at the table and then you just felt like you deserved them just because, and you stopped working as hard. And now, like we live in a world of instant gratification that when something doesn't go your way the first time you try it, then you just kind of feel like, well, fuck it all. Yeah. And that ultimately is because of late stage capitalism.
Late stage capitalism has a big role in this for sure. I think.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
No, that was good. That was good. You were cooking. Yeah.
Okay.
No, just a lot that you kind of covered there, so I won't hit everything, but I think a few things that you mentioned when we were younger and we didn't have tablets and the parents were hanging out with friends, you were forced to hang out with the other kids, whether you liked them or not. And you just had to make up games or have games or,
Or learn conflict resolution at the age of 6.
Yeah.
Right? Because you didn't get along with everyone. And so it was like, well, what are you going to do about it? Right?
And in certain ways also, I feel like you would compete differently.
Sure.
Because like I know for me, like as a kid, hanging out with cousins meant like, okay, well, we're just going to go play basketball because that's the game that we could do. And it's like, well, let's see who's really good at this. And not for nothing, I think video gaming, which is also a big part of this male loneliness epidemic conversation, it kind of flattens sport and fun. Where, it's cool that you get to play 24 hours a day with people from all across the world, and you can have these little micro communities that just do the one thing. But you kind of like pretty soon just sort of balance out to where you're at, and then then it just becomes about being in the space as opposed to self-improvement, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like,
or even the communal aspect of it, right?
I'll use this example. So like, how you and Corey like to play, or I don't know if you still do, but like Dead by Daylight.
It's become less and less, but yes.
Right. Fun game. But like the thing that you can only be so good at it. It's like you just don't get murdered. But you're not there for that anymore. You're just there for the new skins, the new creatures, the new rooms, the new things like that. And so like how immersive they can make that experience is great. Yeah. But unlike basketball or something like that, where you're getting exercise, you're outdoors, you're communicating, you have to work in ICU concert with someone else. You don't necessarily do that the same way through online gaming.
And that's what I was going to say, where the communal aspect of video gaming, even though we now have this worldwide community, right? I think at least back in the day before the internet, right? The idea was we're all getting together at our friend's house and we're all playing this video game together. And if you lose the controller, and then the next person comes in and it's you're playing together either on a team or against each other, whatever the case is, you're still sharing in that environment. And there is that communal aspect of it. And the people not playing are over here talking or, whatever, right?
But there's also this thing of when you were outside, you played with kids. And then it's oh, well, where do you live? Oh, I live down that street, or I lived up that street. And so it's you immediately now know a member of your close network.
Community.
Yeah. Whereas...
Let's not use network.
Sure. Whereas, well, maybe network is better for online, I guess.
Yes,
because we use community so much as a term. But it really is a network. It's these people and, you can make some bonds with them. But again, there's a different element to the close neighborhood thing. In my neighborhood, I love this guy now. He's my favorite person in my neighborhood. But there's a guy who sells little ice cream pops on the corner of not Castroville, fucking Ceralvo. And it's this wonderful little corner. He's got his little stand and he sits there on his stool and every car waves and says hi. And some people stop, some people don't. But I love that guy now because I kind of look forward to seeing him out there. Yeah. And again, and he's contributing to the actual environment of this place that I live in. Yeah. And I think, so for going back to the men of it, I think that's where they're lacking is men, in my opinion, especially cis hetero white men, want to feel like they're Tom Cruise in one movie, right? They got to win the game. They save the day that one time. They have the one thing that they can rest their laurels on for the rest of their life. And to be frank, I just think when you look at things like college graduation rates plummeting, more and more men not graduating or even attending college and on, you just end up with a nation of people who peaked in high school and they didn't even peak then. Yeah. You know what I mean? You just were there.
Well, I think this goes back to the societal issue of it, whereas how are people defining their worth, and more and more late stage capitalism, right? productivity, money, things like that, right? And so if you're not the CEO of XYZ, then like, are you even doing anything with your life?
But are you even the CEO of XYZ? Because I think that's where other people get shit confused. Like sometimes, like this is something that I've even considered too, is like faking the funk a little bit. Like just changing my bio to look way more important than I actually am. But I'm just too regular and dusty to do that. Like, but I know people who do. Like, I know people who are like, oh, I'm a promoter. Like, because that's what it used to be like in the early 2000s. Like, oh, what's his job? He's a promoter. This motherfucker works for the club, okay? Yeah. Like, he doesn't promote shit. He just creates the flyers. Like, but it became, it's this way of sort of like outshining other people in these very...
Giving yourself clout.
Yeah.
You know.
Clout chasey.
Yeah.
And if you can't tap into that for any reason, it does sort of like harm your worth. That's why I love like the homie Chris. Shout out to the homie Chris if he's listening. Like he's one of the most grounded, regular people I know.
Yeah. But that's where where are people finding their worth, right? And like more and more as society is increasing this isolationism, right? Even look at the idea of like remote work and things like that, which, you know, like I have a remote job. I work from home. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
But when I, you know, like close the computer, I have my community here, right? And I got people. I have events that I help organize here, like in person. Like I still am tapped into the people around me. I'm not isolated from them, right?
And I think it's a good way of like work-life balance for some, because like I would love to work at home too, the way you do. Because like, like I don't like office friends, like if that's a thing, you know what I mean? Like I'm not even saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying that whenever I was in corporate environments, the whole corporate culture just was like nails on a chalkboard. I don't want to celebrate someone's birthday. I don't want the free pizza. I want more time off the fucking clock so I can get back to my friends or my community. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of gets blended a lot for people as well. Anyway, I'm sorry. I interrupted.
No, you just went on a tangent. That's all right. Thank you for coming to your TED Talk. And I get it that like for some people, like maybe you've got maybe you're socially awkward. Hi. We're also in the room right now. But it's about finding ways to create that connection, right? And you got to kind of like find that out for yourself. And like for me, it is tasking, right? It's having a project, it's having something to work on, you know, it's creating ways to build community while not feeling like, what the fuck am I doing here, right? And like our friends group does game nights, right? And I'll just speak for me personally. That works really well for me because we have something to focus on. And in the meantime, we're also having conversations about X, Y, and Z, right? You and I have this podcast, you know, and it gives us, you know, for me, it gives us a task to focus on. But at the same time, I'm learning about you. You're learning about me. We're creating bonds. Our spouses are out there in the living room doing whatever it is that they're doing out there in the living room, right? Yeah. Like it's creating community. And that's what I have found out works for me as a way to stay connected to people. A lot of people don't know what works for them because they avoid having to do the work to find out, right? They avoid the idea of like actually working on yourself because you're so easily distracted by whatever it is that's on social media or, you know, like that work don't come fast or easy, right? And so because you sat down and you meditated for 5 minutes and the answers to the universe didn't come to you, you give up on meditation. Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think going back to the mighty big news of it, like men are very rarely taught soft skills. And what you're talking about are just elite soft skills. Like,
and I, you know, just to put that out there, I hate that we call them soft skills, right? Because they're necessary skills. So they're life skills.
That's a fair point. I love that they're called soft skills versus hard skills because I just love the comparison between the two. Because in my eyes, they're both necessary, but I see your point about how one sort of almost seems to lose value because it's separate from the other. And what people don't realize is like, no, these skills are supposed to work in tandem. Yeah. Like you have the hard skills, but then you have the soft skills and that's what makes you an all around person. Yeah. And the late stage capitalism, we're getting a lot better at our hard skills, obviously you can see this through corporate profitability, the amount of work that's getting done. And yet our soft skills are just atrophying.
Very much so. Yeah. So you got some work to do, man. Means.
But you know what? We're here for y'all. Come talk to us.
I mean, maybe. Rooster's here for y'all.
Yeah.
A couple of quick hits of dopamine. One, Leo Castillo Anguiano. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Anywho, is the first trans man to ever serve on the San Antonio City Council.
Yeah.
We have a trans man on our city council, and that's fantastic, even if it is temporary. Yeah. So shout out to that. That's a nice little hit of dopamine. What was this you got in here about Maryland?
Oh, it was just a heat wave. You saw the heat dome because climate change is real and it's happening.
Well, that's right.
So in a town in Maryland, there was a huge heat advisory, and there was this animal shelter that just did not have sufficient air condition. So they just put out a call like, hey, community, we need your help. And speaking of community, they came and showed up, and every single animal there was fostered. And and it was happy news. So quick hit of dopamine. Love when the animals are taken care of.
A couple of other quick things that I saw I didn't put on here. Sabrina Carpenter apparently was able to raise over $1 million for an LGBTQ initiative. She donated a portion of each ticket from her recent sale to this nonprofit. So yay. And then Billie Eilish donated all of her unsold T-shirts from her recent tour to a plant that then recycled them to make them into new T-shirts.
Cute.
You know, like just
that's a good hit of
T-shirts
dopamine.
made out of 100% recycled cotton. So
here for that. Well, we talked a lot.
Yeah, we did. That's why the dopamine had to be quick.
Quick hit.
And before that dopamine fades, we like to end with a little motivational message each time, you know, especially right now when we did kind of talk a lot of doom and gloom, but you know, it's the 4th of July and there's nothing. You listen to the whole episode. You know what's up. So while I pull this card, Rooster, what is your motivational message for the week?
My motivational message is build the bike rack, and this comes from a reel I saw. And so I would give credit to the content creator. I forgot who it was.
Well, if you can get your motivational message from a reel, then I can get it from a tarot card.
Well, I thought after the fact, but essentially what they were saying is that when you want to progress is complicated. And sometimes in an attempt to be as holistic and homeopathic and considerate to others, it's kind of like you miss the forest for the trees. You miss the task at hand. So like if you need to build the metaphor is if you need to build a bike rack and you're like, okay, cool, we're going to build this bike rack for the community so people can put their bikes here. But then someone raises the question like, well, where is this metal sourced from? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, we want to get it sourced from maybe like a local distributor or someone, you know, close to the community. And so you get looking at that and then it's like, well, what's their background? Like, are they any, you know, kind of special group that could really use the help, like, and so you eventually land on getting your like LGBTQ positive locally sourced aluminum for your bike rack, and
with all trans men as the welders for it. And okay, great.
And then someone may have something else that's a problem with it, and then you've wasted all this time. And sometimes you just gotta build the fucking bike rack.
What you're saying is perfect is the enemy of good.
Yes.
I like it. That's a good message.
So do the good thing.
Build the fucking bike rack.
Yeah.
All right.
What'd you pull?
Well, I pulled the Ten of Swords.
Means nothing to me.
Which is not a happy card.
Okay.
So the Ten of Swords typically represents the rock bottom of it all. You have been stabbed by 10 swords, right?
I hope we hit rock bottom.
You are at the lowest of your low, right? But that card can also symbolize that, like, now is the time to rise, right? You know, in recovery, we talk a lot about the paradox of healing and where you have to die in order to live. You have to surrender in order to win, right? And the notion is a paradox for a reason, right? But that idea of like by, you know, like being at your absolute lowest, you are now capable of then rising to your highest. So like if you feel like, yes, and kind of how you said, you know, like I hope we're at our rock bottom, right? Like that just means that now we aren't able to, the only way to go is up. essentially, from
Yeah,
your
it is.
rock bottom, right? So that is the paradox of healing, that sometimes it does take surrender or an absolute loss in order to gain, in order to win. So that is if you're feeling like you are at your lowest, know that you can harness that energy and come out of it.
Well, that does it for us, people. We hope we didn't leave you in a too dour of a mood.
I hope the rest of you are doing nothing on this 4th of July weekend and enjoying your time with your community, your significant others, yourselves. Maybe you're gonna go watch Jurassic Park at the movies, Jurassic
Maybe.
World, Jurassic, which is it? I don't remember.
Jurassic something.
Rebirth. But thank you for sticking with us here at the Puro Pinche podcast. As always, we do. If you enjoyed the episode and you keep enjoying the episodes and keep coming back, like, subscribe, rate, review, help us get the word out about this podcast. You can also support the podcast by going to puropinchepod.com/pod and check out the merchandise. Rooster is sporting our little alien hoodie because it's, somewhere below 90 degrees outside.
Yeah, it's raining.
It's raining, so it's hoodie weather all over again.
Where can they find you, Chibby?
They can find me on the Instagrams at Gemini's, GEMINEYES, or the TikTok at Gemini's Productions. Where can they find you, Rooster?
They can find me on the Gram Roost MTZ.
That's right.
We appreciate all our listeners. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us, and have a good time until next time.
Take care of yourselves out there. Stay safe. Whatever I normally say. I don't know what it is. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Bye.